topic we've touched on a lot is for the first time ever, some major media outlets have refused to endorse presidential candidates. Kamala Harris is putting the blame on former President Trump. Take a look.
How do you feel, Madam Vice President, about these major publications like the LA Times, the Washington Post refusing to endorse somebody for president?
Charlemagne, it's disappointing, no doubt. But the other piece of it is, it gets back to my point about who is Donald Trump, because he is the one, right, who is up for election with me. And, I think that some of your listeners, they know and others may not, which is that, look, it's billionaires in Donald Trump's club.
So is she really playing the I'm not rich enough card? Is she really going to sit here and try to act as if Donald Trump can order Jeff Bezos to do anything? If he could do that, why didn't he order better coverage during his first term as president? Why hasn't he ordered the Washington Post through Jeff Bezos to give him better coverage during the political campaign he's running? She said he's running with her. He is the nominee for the GOP and she is the nominee for the Democrats. And they always endorse Democrats. And this time they're choosing not to. That's not a statement for Donald Trump. It's a statement against Kamala Harris. And so I just want to say, for the good of the order, you feminists, or are you? Either you're all powerful, you can do anything, you're wearing a Wonder Woman suit under your suit, your outfit, and you're able to scale buildings in a single leap, and anything a man can do, you can do better. Or Donald Trump is your boss and you're just running as an afterthought and he's going to beat you. Which is it? Which is it, Kamala Harris? I can't believe she's what we have as a viable representation of feminism. She's supposed to inspire women and girls, young women, to actually achieve new heights. I can't believe she's the one Democrats put forward to accomplish that goal. Now, the changes by big media outlets could point to two things. Firstly, in the days of big media dominance in politics, that they might be coming to a close, or the bleeding of polling numbers for the Democrat Party. In any case, it's trouble for Democrats who are used to getting whatever they want from the media, and it looks like that's over. Joining me now to discuss the days of big media dominance ending is author of The Total State, How Liberal Democracies Become Tyrannies, and host of the Auron MacIntyre Show. He's a columnist for the Blaze News. Auron MacIntyre, welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
So what do you make of it? Is Kamala, like her whining right there with Charlemagne, whatever he calls himself, what did you make of that?
Well, Stacy, the media is just famously pro-Trump. They just love Republicans. They're always biased for it's insane, right? It's absolutely crazy. The one time ever that the press doesn't fall all over themselves to praise Kamala Harris as the second coming, she pretends that, oh, they're all bought and sold by Donald Trump. The really interesting thing in this whole dynamic, I believe, is the fact that the media very obviously went out of their way to basically lead the push for a coup inside the Democratic Party after the preference cascade during the Joe Biden-Donald Trump debate. They were very actively lobbying for a new candidate and pushing basically every Democrat they could get a hold of on this issue until Kamala Harris ascended to prominence. Now she's such a disaster that the very people who masterminded her ascension have to run away from her. It's so clear that she is going to lose. It is so clear that she is an embarrassment that even the very people who elevated her to this position are abandoning her in the last week. And that's ultimately what she's feeling. She believed she was going to have the endorsement of every one of these papers, which is increasingly irrelevant, but it's still something the Democrats assumed would happen. And now she's feeling like she's been knifed in the back by the very people who told her to run in the first place.
What I find so funny about it is that, Auron, you first of all, you perfectly laid out the timeline. This was supposed to be her last kind of, saving grace. Announcements falling like dominoes, LA Times, Washington Post. She was going to see all of these different news organizations and they were going to one by one, and she was going to be able to tick off not just California, her home state, but battleground states where these papers are located. And she was going to be able to say, you're not endorsed by a single newspaper in this country because they're not the fake news, you are. But instead, now she can't say that. And the other question is, why every single Democrat but not her? Because most of these newspapers have been endorsing the Democrat for over 30 years, some of them longer than that. And she's the first one not to get it. Even Michelle Obama is running around saying, I stay up at night wondering why Kamala doesn't have a landslide type of a victory coming. And you're kind of thinking to yourself, well, it's because she's not that good. She's not as good as Hillary was. She's not as good as Michelle Obama is. She just isn't that good.
Yeah, you could definitely feel the panic, right? They knew that Donald Trump was looking much better than Joe Biden. Joe Biden was a disaster. And so even though everyone knew Kamala Harris was a disaster from the very beginning, they said, look, we just need something else, anything else. And obviously we can't elevate someone beyond this person who we propped up as, a woman, DEI, she's got the right skin color, she's got the right background, all these things. They can't do that. They can't put someone like Gavin Newsom ahead of her in their version of the leftist oppression Olympics. And so all they could do was run her. But now they know she's terrible. And yes, you would think that they would still go through the perfunctory, just the performance of putting her on the front of the pages, endorsing her, this kind of thing. But their reputation is so damaged. And as you point out, this could be the end of their dominance. Let's not forget that Donald Trump's appearance on two major podcasts, the Joe Rogan Experience and Theo Vaughn's podcast, have done wonders elevating him inside the minds, especially with younger voters. We're seeing a shift in the media landscape. The old legacy papers used to have at least a distinguished air about them, even if they weren't ultimately that influential among younger voters. But now we're seeing the fact that actually they desperately need some kind of affirmation as news outlets because their credibility is falling apart. So are they really going to go out there and put the last shred of dignity they have left on the block for Kamala Harris just so she can lose to Donald Trump? I don't think so.
And this also goes to the fact that, once you've seen your newspaper in your hometown, even if your hometown newspaper is the Washington Post or the LA Times, if they've endorsed no one but Democrats for 30 years, then you expect them to endorse the Democrat. And if you aren't a Democrat, that's just another middle finger in your face after all of the middle fingers you've received from Google suppressing our results, Facebook, tuning down news stories. So when your friends share an important story on Facebook, you can't see it. And for the younger set who they don't read newspapers, they don't even watch regular news, they're even starting to abandon cable news. They're kind of like, so the newspaper endorsed, like, who even noticed that? Because they're not subscribers. They're not paying, 99 cents a month to subscribe to the lowest tier on the Washington Post. They don't read it at all. They get all of their news on TikTok or X. They are in Discord groups where they have open discussions with each other, like the party line of the boomer age. This is an online party line type of a thing that you can just sit and talk for hours and hours and hours and watch movies together, even if you're across the country from each other. They are looking for relevance, and I'm not sure, Auron, if they might have waited just a bit too long to claw it back.
Yeah, the real knife in the back from this is that while Kamala Harris put herself out there as the candidate for change, even though she was basically the incumbent, the person who's new and hip, and she's at the forefront of the revolution, ultimately she's really only backed by the legacy powers, the legacy media, all those different outlets that you were talking about. And what is new, what is different is this mode of communication, especially when it comes to podcasts that are long form. And Kamala Harris simply cannot do it. Donald Trump, he might say some things that sound a little wild or crazy, but ultimately he is very entertaining and thoughtful over the course of 3 hours. Kamala Harris simply would make a absolute disaster of herself after 15 minutes. Everybody knows it, and everybody knows that's why she couldn't do any of these critical shows that are now having a lot of leverage. And ultimately, that's really devastating for her. She needed that traditional endorsement because she couldn't hang it, or she couldn't hack it in the world of the new digital media.
Yeah, I'm Auron. That's it right there. It is Donald Trump, because they're now mocking him and saying he can't, he won't do interviews with this outlet or that. He's avoiding interviews. To be able to sit down with Joe Rogan for 3 hours. And what I thought was interesting was, as I was listening to it, and I still haven't made my way through the whole thing, 3 hours is a lot of content for me to consume. Auron, I can't believe how well he did. Joe Rogan's questions were amazing, and they had a substantial conversation. As usual, we always run out of time, you and I. You're such a great guest. Auron MacIntyre, thank you so much for coming on the show. Good to see you.
Thanks again. Great talking to you.